Welcome to the Real Humans, Great Souls podcast. And today's topic, of course, is decked out as I am patriarchy. And yes, patriarchy hurts men too. So that's the topic. And while I'm laughing here, of course, it's a very serious topic because it has bothered humanity for a while now. Mind you, I mean, there have been millennia where it seems to not have bothered anybody. So I want to explore that a little bit with you, for you. Of course, now nobody is going to jump on because the links are all wrong again. And we shall see. Yeah. Oh, everybody is trying to help me out here. Did you try to hit live? Yeah, it did not work. So now I said in one of my posts and emails that equality will only be achieved when women can wear suits and ties and men can wear dresses. Now, of course, women have been wearing like this suits and ties for about 100 years now. But before that, and even in the 50s, there was still a lot of areas where professionally women could not appear like this in suit and tie. So there's still a lot to be done. And of course, on the other side, there's even more to be done. We're all worried about it right now, right? In this era, apparently. So, but first things first, what is patriarchy? I mean, we all know that it means men are in control, but it really means a male run, and I'll talk about this a lot, my apologies, a male run, top down pyramidal system in which maleness is needed to be the leader, the controller, the commander, the god, the you name it, everything that operates and owns. And operating is not just operating, it's also owning. Everything that owns anything in the world has to be male. That also doesn't work. Okay. I don't want my face to be all bleached out either. So the technical setup is not quite correct yet, but we do the best we can. Yes. So we have a situation in which maleness dominates, and therefore maleness is right. Maleness is providing direction and deriving and constructing everything. And non-maleness and non-adult maleness is therefore subservient and is therefore owned by maleness. So, I was just reading it back here. What is patriarchy? A system of society or government in which the father or eldest male is head of the family and descent is traced through male line. Of course, that's also the fact that we get our father's name, and until recently, women got their married name from or took the name of their husbands. Women literally became part of their husbands, and of course would say in the vows, even in civil marriages before I guess it's court. Yeah, we went to court. Yes, I will obey my husband. So, and what is also patriarchy is a system of society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. It says here largely, that's already an advanced point of view. And thirdly, very short, a society or community organized on patriarchal lines. So, patriarchy is male dominance and male ownership of everything female and everything non-adult, and of course everything animal, everything land, everything business, etc. So in so many ways we can say that patriarchy is waning. Patriarchy is losing its definiteness, if that is a word. It's losing its absolute order. When we entered into the era of course, the suffragettes, the women suddenly wanting to also go to school, how dare we? The slave revolts, we tend to project backwards as though there have always been revolts against that system, but it does not appear to be so. For millennia, the male dominance seems to have been perpetuated without revolt, without wanting to equalize or wanting to take down male power, if you will. And wars, of course, are not disturbing that system. In fact, they're reinforcing that system, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. So historically, we've had 7,000 years. That's what the archaeologists tell us. And Rian Eisler, the Chalice and the Blade, describes that very beautifully, how prior to patriarchal orders in empires, there was partnership, she calls it society, Galanic. And coming out of that into a patriarchal system made the world ruled by males. And for me, many things go along with that maleness as it has been defined. But of course, what I'm talking about today is that my son said, patriarchy hurts men too. And that goes into what is missing in the experience of life on planet Earth for males in a patriarchy is so much feeling, so much sensation, so much allowed to be emotional, so much experience of qualities that we in patriarchy do not associate with maleness. So, and we're getting there. I'm just wanting to lay out the historical thing a little bit more and the connections that are, for me, in my analysis, also in existence because of patriarchy. And that is in particular violent war. That is in particular also slaughter, back to Pythagoras stating, as long as we will slaughter animals, there will be war. So he equates those two notions as well. That to me is also the notion of, like I said, ownership of other human beings. And that's, of course, then not just women and children, but also slaves. And of course, entire populations in a royal empire. The king considers the entire population my people, right? My people that can be commanded at any time to give up everything they may have or think they have, including their children. And of course, we still have that today. There's talk now that the draft will be brought back in the USA right here so that men can be owned and sent to kill and be killed. Let's be honest, that's what war is, or that's what being a soldier is, right? So if we have this entire era of patriarchy, well, what's the good thing about it? What did humanity gain from that experience of going through this patriarchy that we're slowly trying to get out of? Of course, we're way not out of it. So we have, in my association, patriarchy has to do with competitiveness, dominance. So competitiveness also means I have to be better than my younger brothers. As we just read, patriarchy also means that the elder always has the first right, and then you have the lower ranks, so to speak, even in a family, of the boys that are younger who need to listen to the oldest. And when the father passes, the oldest son will take over. I should make a list of these things and write them up properly. So with patriarchy comes competition, war, dominance, and societal positioning, kind of class and caste system. And you always want to be rather at the top, right? Of course, competitiveness, and that goes along as well with that system. So you have a class and caste system where the eldest, the richest, the fastest, the strongest, etc., will always dominate the others that are lesser. And therefore, all hierarchical systems go well with patriarchy, or are created in this patriarchal era. What do you gain from that? You gain perpetuation and enlargement of communities. If you think of humans possibly living in smaller communities 20,000 years ago and further ago, although I think there have been other eras of higher cultures. And, immediately I realized that in the back of my mind goes higher culture. Well, were they also patriarchal, or is it possible to have a large society at an earlier age to function without patriarchal systems? Now, of course, we wonder, women when not being at home tending the home and the children, how does procreation work? And then you realize, or you can realize, that's just a projection of what we're used to. Procreation, of course, works beautifully while sustaining the system. We can see it in many animal kingdoms in which the female is also the leader and procreates, and the males just help out here and there, or in some species are just there to fertilize the females. So coming from this dominance war, what is war? And I think it needs to be said too. War means that young men have to be educated to be murderers. There's no other way of putting it. We sort of sanitize war by saying, yes, we have casualties, fatalities. How do they occur? Because somebody in today's world, somebody pressed the button, somebody pulled the trigger, but it is still murder. It is still unaliving another human being. So what we have in the entire patriarchal era, therefore, is a very murderous existence on planet Earth of all human societies that engage in the patriarchal system. Now, I will be saying some very controversial stuff here today. Now we want to begin to change that because we women have come to the fore and said, we too want to go to school. We too have brains. We too have intelligence. We too want to create things, not just in culture and art, but also in inventions. And think of the women in computers, the women in space. There was this beautiful movie, of course, that you all know what I'm talking about these 3 African American women who participated enormously. Women in mathematics. I have a client who's a mathematics genius, and she is, struggling with the same issues that we all, as educated women, are experiencing more or less here or there. That finding that new balance is not just difficult for us, but it is also difficult for the men that we are going, it seems like, going against, or that feel like we're pushing them out of the way in order to take up some of the space that they used to own. And now for a man, what does that mean? What does that mean to be pushed out of a traditionally established positioning in society? So what does that mean that there's this dichotomy, this contradictory moral, right? That on the one hand, you're supposed to be a soldier, you're supposed to go out and kill. And on the other hand, you're supposed to learn how to be more well-rounded, more allowing yourself to have softness, to have your own femininity come to the fore. And of course, that's why I'm in suit and tie today, because of course, we women have stepped into suits and ties to find our space in the male world, because it so happens that that's how we get equality, right? And now we need the counter movement. We need men to be allowed to be soft. And, yes, women can wear pants and suits and ties, and men need to be allowed to wear dresses and whatever, high heels, if you will, to be exploring what it is like to be a woman without having to cut their bodies apart. But, yeah, so it's it's a long journey to figure out where that new equilibrium will be. Yeah, so all these qualities come with the patriarchy that we're trying to outgrow. We're trying to outgrow meanness also in the workplace, and because with dominance, right, of the males also in the workplace and in our societal communities, etc., comes, of course, the right to be mean, the right to be what's the word, to harass, the right to infringe upon a woman's body or rights, or because there were no rights before this whole movement of equality. And yeah, we're expecting so much from men to figure out what that is, what that new positioning is. And at the same time, we're still, of course, expecting them to pay the bills if a child is in need, or pay their child support, or do all the things, fix the car, that we traditionally as women have not learned. Mind you, one of my clients had a shop, a car repair shop for many years, and knows how to repair cars. So all of that is slowly happening, but it is a long road to go. And I wanted to tell you a few of the stories of my own life that had me thinking about these issues from a very young age. I suppose the earliest that comes to mind is in my young years when I was on stage, and actually first on stage in a very almost, well, it's not avant-garde anymore, in a very modern, large theatrical setting with my first large appearance. Before that, I had just sung in clubs and, guitar and singing. But then I had this large performance in a show called, it wasn't really called The Beatles, but everybody called it The Beatles. It was John, Paul, George, Ringo, and Bert. And it was a musical using a lot of the Beatles songs. And I was singing the Beatles songs, and there was all these scenes acted out of the Beatles' lives and how they came to fame. And it was beautifully said. Anyway, I was at this theater, a large theater in Germany. And in Germany, theaters are state funded. So this audience, somewhere between 1 and 2,000, had incredible actors who had studied method and Meisner and Stanislavski, and were really into the new exploring of the self. So we had quite a few non-binary, non-straight characters in the large ensemble of the theater. And it was fascinating to me to learn how we, of course, are all coming into this world not really being taught about the fact that there's this broad spectrum of sexuality, of how we define ourselves, our sexual identity, and of what it is. I mean, of course, traditionally I had observed, that there's only women and only men, and they come together and make babies. You figure that out when nobody teaches you as a kid. And today, of course, every child finds things on the internet. But yeah, we had to figure these things out, and it was fascinating to me that it wasn't straightforward, only male, only female. It just isn't. There's so many variations. Then I learned about the fact that some males have a female organ, and some women have a male organ. It may be very small, but all these variations are in biology in the world. And we have, of course, in an embryonic stage, we have both. All women have testicles at one stage that then dissolve, and some women will still have remains of testicles. And of course, and men have lactating glands. Actually, those stay throughout their life, but they're not active. They get deactivated because of hormonal kick-ins at a certain stage of the development. So we come in kind of as this universal being that then formats its own variation of this broad spectrum of possibilities. Now, most 80% go into clearly female and clearly male, but all those others, and that's a lot of humans, 15 to 20% have some variation, have some either chromosomal or hormonal or biological variation of these clear definitions. I mean, we all, talk about different sizes, right? Different sizes boobs, and different sizes penises, and different sizes testicles, and different sizes butts, and so forth. And of course, the entire biology has all these variances. Some of it genetic, some of it just variations that are created in the womb. And we don't know how predetermined those developments are. We really don't know what is energetically already there before something tries to incarnate, if you want to have that kind of understanding. We don't know. But in any case, we do know that females and males have much more of each other than is currently acknowledged. So when males used to have their place here and females used to have their place here, and we're just sort of at the dominance, right? We now have females coming up, claiming some of that maleness, and males being pushed somewhat out of their position, but also have the opportunity to explore that softness. Boys are now allowed to cry. Boys are now allowed to giggle and have fun and hug and say, I love you, and be soft and caress and be gentle and so forth. All these notions could be such a gift to men. All these notions that would broaden the life experience so much could be a great gift, just as it is a gift to females to be able to dress up and in male clothes and move into these positions of leadership and professionality and a different respect in the world that was just not there. You know, you can explain it all the way with like, oh, but you know, they were the carrier of the family and so forth. Yes. And still, it is undeniable that this is the era in which we want more equality, right? Otherwise, we would not send our girls to school or to learn or to grow up and be what they want to be. And I'm not saying school must be it. You know, it can be homeschool, it can be home learning, it can be straight to university. You know, there are all kinds of variations that are possible. But like I said, the suffragettes and then the feminist movements and, you know, yes, there's lots of errors that are being made, but they're all movements toward getting into that space. And we're not paying enough attention to what happens to men who are pushed out of that space because we're not allowing them into our space at the same time. That's why I'm so happy when I travel in Europe to see, you know, men carrying their babies in baby pouches and doing or staying at home and doing the cooking, and woman goes to work and or runs the business. All of that is now emerging. And it's both a beautiful thing and still, yeah, today I want us all to think about what it feels like, especially for young men, to find their place in this muddy world for them. Because for us, it's, you know, storm forward. Yes, we make mistakes, but we know the direction. But for them, it is not clear, because when they explore their femininity, we poo-poo, we, you know, outcast, we do all kinds of things to disrespect when a man stays at home and says, I want to look after the children. You know, when breastfeeding is finished, then I will take over. Or even, you know, continue the breastfeeding, pump the milk, and because we have refrigeration, you know, beautiful stuff, we can do those things too and allow men to experience the beautiful part of being with your small children. It's just, you know, it's something that we've deprived men of experiencing. Just as we've deprived women of experiencing leadership in an office or in a company, right? And now we are exploring that, we are having that. And reversely, we need to allow and respect men to have that other experience, that not being career oriented. And that's what I wanted to talk about next. So just a couple of words, because it is so typical for this topic to come up in everybody's minds recently, yes, the gender definition, and, why do people have to cut off their body parts to become the other? And we find that too invasive, or we find that wrong, or all kinds of things. Yet we don't find it wrong that we routinely mutilate the human body still, whether it's by mutilating the male genitals at birth and thinking that's normal, or whether it is mutilating female faces with Botox and facelifts, etc., because we think that's pretty. I was explaining to my sister today what Botox is, but that's for another broadcast. But it's a poison that creates nerve damage, paralysis, and swelling. What are we doing? But yeah, so we go through all these aberrations to explore power over our own body, and to explore the variety of things that are in us that we could also be. And of course, I'm more of the opinion, let's explore what is in this natural body that we happen to have anyway. And yeah, why shouldn't I be wearing a suit? And why shouldn't a man with a beard wear a dress and explore femininity without beard or no, it doesn't matter, without having to mutilate or alter our bodies, right? I wanted to put that in there. So and of course, in the ultimate analysis, it is easier for a woman to become a handsome looking man than it is for a man to become a pretty woman, because of the way we, of course, see prettiness and the way we see handsomeness, right? I can develop at least a little bit of muscle tissue. And I did want to tell you, I was asked, when I lived in Los Angeles for a year, I was asked by a student filmmaker, would I play a part in his short? It was a 10-minute short. And of course, yeah, tell me more. Well, you're tall, and I think it would work well for you because I need you to play a man. Why? There's so many young men who would love to act in your movie. Hollywood, of course, is full of wannabe movie stars. And I had a background of course, acting in film and television and on stage. So this is post my acting days that I was in Los Angeles. I was in my writing days and then making movies days. But yeah, I said, sure, I'll do it. Well, you have to be a man, because at the end of the movie, it will be revealed that you're not. So they fixed me up nicely, with a mustache, and it was astounding. It was really astounding to me. I did not recognize myself. And of course, I studied more male movements and, the whole demeanor, and it's not that hard. It's much easier, I think, for women to move into male behavior than it is for men to move into true feminine behavior. That's why we have all the the exaggerated movements that we then find funny. And I had seen those in my young years. Yeah, because I was often working out with drag queens who would work out late in the morning because they had spent the night in clubs in Berlin. That's where I lived in my early entertainment days. So I had that drag queen experience, and the overdoing femininity, right? And I definitely didn't want to overdo maleness, so I studied for that part, and like I said, they fixed me up really nicely with. I had short hair at the time, and I could not recognize myself on screen. It was hilarious to me. So we have an advantage here. It is easier for females to become unrecognized trans men than it is for men to become unrecognized trans females. Just because of our physiognomy as well, because you can be a skinny man if you don't have very broad hips and big thighs or something, then it's, but, that all arranges itself, I suppose, when you're working on your body. So yeah, here I was playing a man, and it was a wonderful experience. And the great thing was, so I'm picking up a woman who's a prostitute, right? I'm hanging out at this stand in downtown Hollywood in that movie, as this man looking for a pickup, and picking up this woman and take her to my apartment. And as we are undressing, it is then I suddenly tear off the mustache. And the beautiful thing is that actually it was almost like we as actors, the woman turns out to be a guy, and I, of course, turn out to be a woman, had this laugh, this really beautiful natural laughter at the end of this little movie. And he left that in, and his professors kind of whatever lauded him. He won an award with that little thing too. I don't have a copy of it, so don't ask me for it. I don't have a copy of any of the movies I'm in. Some can be found online. Oh, I promised somebody I was going to send them something. But yeah, I just, I don't really feel I need those, but of course it would be fun to have those things. I don't even remember what it was called, that short. But yeah, so it is easier for a woman to unrecognized become a man than it is for a man to become a woman unrecognizable. Living in Manhattan for a while I was going to Columbia University, I would make kind of a mind game of it, walking in the subways late at night. When you're at film school, you're out all kinds of times of day and night in the middle of the night, kind of. I would sort of do this mind game. Oh, that's a man as a woman, and that's, I would have these analyses of people. That, of course, in the nightlife in Manhattan at the time, where you still had peep shows on 42nd Street, was a very different environment than it is today, prior to the internet, prior to the internet. You just can't see many things anymore because of the internet and because of the foreverness that we now have. Every image that is taken or every video, of course, we didn't have video ability. We had these huge video cameras that were brand new in the late 80s, that, with this big apparatus on your shoulder. And we had 16 millimeter. And that's what we worked with. 16 millimeter is actual celluloid film strip where you film in the negative and then it gets developed into the positive and then you can see it. So for you young people, that's just what? It's another era. But I'm saying you could see so much more of the variety of humanity because it was all out there in those 80s and 90s. And then the internet came in and it changed. All right. So it is even harder for men to become women. And therefore, that's a disadvantage if that is the goal, right? I would much rather have a much more open understanding of who humans are with all that variety of being and of biological appearances too, and allow for that variety to play out more and respect that variety. So therefore, men could have more sensitivity, experience more gentleness, tenderness. I've learned from the partners I have had and the 2 marriages I have had in my life how much men are missing that. The sweet touch and being allowed to learn to reciprocate that sweet, soft touch, as opposed to, you're mine, my woman, come over here. Yes, I've had that too. So learning to experience deep feelings go together with a certain amount of surrender. Now, when you're in this warring, competitive system where you have to dominate, what does surrender then mean? Then surrender means defeat, trash, bad. Whereas surrender is an incredibly beautiful experience if it is in a space of mutual experience, in a space of mutual respect. What we then have is when a man feels he wants to experience surrender, they will look for a dominatrix, right? But that's not the kind of surrender I mean. That's not the kind of, because that's again war and dominance, right? As the name suggests. What I mean is depth of transparency and openness, and therefore depth of feeling and allowing oneself to have this incredible depth of emotional experience of not just the female other or the male other for that matter, but of therefore also all of life's other experiences, from the sunset to the beautiful meal, to the glass of water, to the exhilaration of being on top of a mountain, to all of it. Okay, so many topics. Patriarchy hurts men too. In what way does patriarchy hurt men in marriage? Because traditionally, what does marriage mean? Like I said in the beginning, the man has the responsibility to look after and command around the woman and the children who have to obey. Now, that's an incredible burden on the poor guy. That's an incredible responsibility to have to do all that and be all that and provide all that and always know what to do. And of course they don't, but pretend to know what's right and no, we're doing this. Does it make sense? Maybe it doesn't make sense. Somebody might suggest, yeah, but I said so and therefore. So it puts this burden of being right and being charged with the leadership responsibility and therefore being charged with tyranny, really, when you think about it. That's not fair, because it just takes away the playfulness in life, the sharing. Happiness is making another person happy. So it takes away happiness from the male experience of being alive. So how do we change that? How do we change the traditional marriage into partnership? I like that. Partnership. Can there still be committing to raising children together? Of course. Because there's just some truth to the beauty of having, as a child, having two parents. It doesn't have to be. In many animal species, that's not the case. The male disappears and mom does all the work. But yeah, it's a beautiful concept that we as humans can have that. I should actually research that. There aren't many creatures, many species that actually jointly raise their young. Interestingly, the traveling birds, the bigger ones, the geese and the ducks, definitely do it. Who else does? I need to explore that. So sharing in partnership should be the ideal. How do we get there? What else do we need to learn and relearn? Coming in with different expectations. Oops, it is late. Oh my God, I've been talking so long again. Coming in with the expectation of, a human being with male features. Let's see what else is there. Let's see what they want to be in relationship to us. I was listening to a now famous matchmaker, Paul Brunson, I think is his name. Who was talking about, in today's world, how you make a relationship, in his case, of course, a marriage, work. And those are exactly the steps, the reflection again and again. What is my expectation and my language, and what is their expectation and their language of love, their language of wanting to be recognized, wanting to be participating, or wanting to have space, boundaries, and all of these things. And when both ways are explored, meaning there is no dominance, or there are decisions of, you dominate in this part and I dominate in that part. But then we so easily fall into the good old traps, okay, you take out the trash and repair the car, and I do the laundry and the kitchen, right? And the cooking. But yeah, we can reverse so many of those things. All right. Fathering and mothering. Yeah, let's get away from the traditional expectations. And that doesn't mean that men also have to give birth and that women also have to develop sperm. It just means that, coming back to my mantra, we all need to transition from these role expectations and or the concept of competitiveness. Even here, women competing with men now, and and oh dear, but rather get to a contribution level where we contribute on all ends, not just in the professional world, but also in the family and in the home and in the caretaking and in the planning and so forth and so forth. So, wrapping it up, because my son, by the way, who is 28, not 27 anymore, he had a birthday very recently, and I somehow have not switched his age in my mind. He's 28 now. I said he's 27 in one of my emails. Also said that there's so much pressure on us men, to be all this and be all that and be ambitious and have a career, and he wants to do his thing. And he wants to spend time and cook with his girlfriend, and he wants to have his friends and hang out and teach others how things work, but on his terms. So let's allow men to explore more of who they also are. And let's not be afraid of them wearing dresses, because we can wear ties too. All right, this has been Real Humans, Great Souls. Patriarchy Hurts Men Too. More next week. I look forward to exploring education next, because that's another one of my expertises. And of course, I want you all to subscribe. And one of these days, I will figure out how the pre-scheduled thing works on my computer, because it seems to connect when I go directly into live, but it doesn't connect when I schedule. So there's some technological issue that I have not figured out, and I will get to the bottom of it. Even if I have to bother my 28-year-old son who says, Mom, you always claim to be intelligent. Figure it out. Yeah. Have a wonderful week. And of course, comment and let me know what topics you would also like me to talk about, being health, education, and I guess today was education. All right. So much. Ciao, everybody. Love yourselves, love your bodies that have all the possibilities. Ciao.